Hello, everybody. It's the Grouchy Historian, and today we're going to wrap up actually reading the Constitution with the last article, the last few articles in the Constitution. Okay. All right. So we the first three articles, of course, describe the three parts of government, right? But wait, there's more, right? There's some actually quite a few important issues that are addressed in the final what do we got? One it's Article 4, 5, 6, and 7 that I think we need to kind of appreciate a little bit because they also affect us today, right? So let's go to Article 4, Section 1. This is probably one of the most important yet misunderstood articles here, where it basically says full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts or actions, blah, 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 of every other state, right? Goes on to Section 2, where it says the state citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states. Basically, you're no longer a citizen of Virginia or Massachusetts. You're now American citizens, right? So you have all the same rights and privileges that you would in Virginia as you do in North Carolina, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, whatever, right? Um, and of course, when it says public acts, records, judicial proceedings, as we're going to see, this is going to be the basis of the Supreme Court cases dealing with gay marriage and other issues where you have where you before the Supreme Court ruled, you had conflicting state laws where in some states gay marriage was allowed, other states it was not. Part of the basis of the Supreme Court decision ruling on gay marriage came from this article right here. Okay. Also, and it's not as important now, of course, but it was back then. Article 4, Section 3 talks about how we get new states, right? Because almost immediately after the country was forming, or the Constitution was ratified and the country was formed, you see the very first new states come into the Union, right? Kentucky, Tennessee, and Vermont. Okay. So it's important how, and of course, this would go on until 1960 when Hawaii and Alaska became states, how states moved from territories to statehood, right? Now, the next section is also very important because, again, keep in mind, we are not a democracy. Everybody always says, oh, we're a democracy. No, we are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. It says so right here in Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, not a democratic form of government. And this hasn't any Democratic or Republican parties. And this is a straight democracy where you rule by the vote or mob rule to a constitutional republic with an elected representative government. Okay, very important. Most importantly, you're going to see in Article 5 is how the Constitution is amended, right? Our founders, again, were smart enough to know that they didn't know everything and that there were going to be occasions arose that we would need to amend the Constitution. And indeed, they are correct. We have had 27 amendments to the Constitution over the 200 plus years that the Constitution, or after the Constitution was ratified. Okay, so they had a process. Now it's interesting here because normally constitutional amendments go through goes through Congress, then it goes to the states. But they also, this is a little interesting tidbit. They can be the Congress shall propose amendments, or interestingly enough, the states could actually call another constitutional convention. You might see this in the news sometimes, right? When ratified by legislature of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. So in theory, if 34 states, whatever the math works out to be, 34 states, 3/4 decided that they wanted to hold a constitutional convention and propose amendments, not change the Constitution. Important distinction. Propose amendments. Those amendments, of course, would still have to go through the process of going through Congress and then being ratified by 3/4 of the states. But it is constitutionally permissible if 3/4 of the states so chose to do, to call a convention and propose amendments to the Constitution. Okay. Here's another interesting but little known article. Article 7, right? was all debts contracted and engagements entered into before adoption of the Constitution shall be valid against the United States. This, again, was part of the wheeling and dealing backdoor deals that were done. Part of what we will see as we go through the process of ratification is this was sort of the, in terms of one of my favorite movies, the double secret probation deal that they gave the states. If you ratify the Constitution and form this new Congress, your war debts will be assumed by the country. Now, again, this did not go over well with every state, but this was one of those compromises and sort of pot sweeteners, as it were, to get the Constitution ratified. Is there was a way to get the onerous war debt paid off, okay? Also, it says right here, again, very important, we're going to see this in some of the early Supreme Court cases, Article 6. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. The supreme law of the land. Again, we will see this tested in some of the early Supreme Court cases, but it was meant to be the supreme law of the land, okay? The last article is Article 7, and this is another little kind of sneaky covert op here. So they very specifically did not put out the Constitution to be ratified by the state legislatures. They were very smart, and they were not sure that that was going to fly, because basically the state legislatures would be voting their power away. Figure the odds of any politician ever doing that. So they were very sneaky. It said the ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states so ratifying the same. So they very specifically said, we're going to have each state call a special convention to vote on ratification of the Constitution, right? And it would, of course, go into effect when 9 out of the 13 states ratified it. This was important because all 13 colonies had to ratify the Articles of Confederation. 9 of the 13. And we'll see as we go through looking at the ratification fight that some of the states kind of dragged their feet. And they had to kind of see, well, what's that state going to do? What's that state going to do? What's in it for us? And then they started thinking, well, shoot, if all these guys ratify, are we going to feel left out? Are we going to get left out? Are we going to get the benefits of the new politics, my friends? The founders knew how to do politics. This was very specifically done. Okay, hopefully you have made it all the way through the Constitution. Congratulations, you have done something that very few Americans, including myself, to be perfectly honest, until I started preparing for this course, actually did, which was read the entire Constitution. So now, next week, we're going to look at some of the ratification process and how the Constitution actually became the supreme law of the land.